Howdy y'all. Today we are looking at the ultimate unit for Seraphon. That's right, the Dread Saurian. What an absolute unit. If you happen to own this model, man, props to you, because this thing is awesome looking. It's a giant resin block. I mean, it weighs a couple pounds, I think. This thing is amazing. But we're going to look at it today. What does this Warscroll card do? How can we utilize it in our army? And, I mean, if you've got it, you're going to play it. So this video isn't going to change your mind. For everybody else, it's just going to make us want it. So let's look at this Warscroll card. First, we're gonna start off looking at the actual model. Now, this one it's a resin model. It's only available from Forge World. For that hefty price tag. Woo! Look at that thing. $240 for one model. And it doesn't even come with a base. Yeah, this is the Forge World monster for Seraphon army. It is expensive. It is if you're putting an investment in this thing, you're going to spend some time painting this guy up, making it look awesome, and then being proud to put it on the table regardless of what happens. It doesn't come with a base, however, so be prepared to get a base for this guy. There's some on eBay that you can find for pretty cheap, but it does require a 280 by 210 millimeter base. What? The thing is huge. That's huge. Look at this comparison. I got this picture here. Here's a comparison picture of what this base. This is a cardboard cutout template, but look at the size of that thing. You got a skink up here in that corner of the base. There's a Carnosaur, which is already our giant monster. And here's an entire Thunderquake sitting on that base. That's insane. That's insane. It's so big. So you gotta be prepared for some kind of diorama on its base. I mean, this monster, he's a big monster, but he doesn't quite fill up a 280 millimeter base. That's 11 inches, in case you're from Texas like me, don't understand millimeters. So let's look at the Warscroll card. Let's look at this guy. Let's look at what he does, what his purpose is in our army, and how we can utilize this incredible model. All right, so starting off, it has a move of 10, a save of 4. Both of those seem fairly reasonable. Bravery of 8, and a wounds of 35. Woo, 35 wounds. Man. That is, as far as I know, that is the most wounds on any model in Age of Sigmar. I think the Corn Dragon has 30, and it's 1,200 points. Our Dread Saurian here has 35 wounds. It is 510 points to put into our army. So you are looking at, a significant chunk of your army to dedicate to this guy. But 35 wounds. If you put him in Coalesced in Thunderquake, he is a Behemoth, so he'll get an extra 2 wounds. So now we're talking 37 wounds. So 37 wounds. It is on a 4-up save, so you will have to worry about some rend, especially if you get into heavy rend. He will start taking wounds, but we have some ways to negate that, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Let's look at his melee profiles, his gargantuan jaws. Now this thing, I mean, this is a gigantic dinosaur. It's got to have amazing attacks here. 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, -2 rend, with a bracketing 6 damage. It's not, I think you get kind of suckered in by that 6 damage, because that is amazing, but the attack profile is pretty bad, to be honest. So 3 attacks, you're going to miss half of those on the hit, assuming there's no minuses to hit, and then you're going to miss a third of those on the wound. I mean, you're going to be lucky to get one of these through. The rend is really good, and the damage is awesome, but I don't think you're going to be putting out a lot of damage from this. There will be times where you'll hit on all of them, wound on all of them, and all will come through, and you'll do 18 damage, which will be awesome. But I think we need, I would have rather had a few more attacks and maybe brought the jaws down a little bit. That 4 to hit is rough. Raking Claws, you got 6 attacks. They'll be bracketed on a 2-up hit, 3-up wound, -1 rend, 2 damage. So here's, we got a little bit more quantity of attacks, and that's a good profile. 2s and 3s, -1 rend's fine, 2 damage. So that one you'll get some work done, I think. Armored Tail, 1 attack, 4 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, d6 damage. So this is the one that you'll probably never hit on. The one time you'll hit on it, you'll be hitting some kind of trash you don't care about. But 1 attacks on a 4-up to hit is tough. But overall, the damage isn't quite what I was hoping for from this model. But maybe that's not why we're taking him. Let's look at his abilities. He does have Arcane Glyphs. Each time a model is affected by a spell or endless spell, you can roll a dice. On a 6-up, you ignore the effects of the spell or endless spell. Add 2 if it's within 12 inches of a friendly Slann. So this has a spell ignore of a 6-up or a 4-up if you're around a Slann. Okay, that's not bad. That's pretty good. I like that. Because, every unit's going to have a Slann in it, so we'll have one around there somewhere. Obliterating Charge. After this model makes a charge move, roll a dice on each enemy unit within 1 inch of this model. On a 2-up, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds if it's a monster, or d6 mortal wounds if it's not a monster. Interesting. So here, we're going to be doing some major wounds, some mortal wounds to everything we charge. And if you remember how big this base looks, you're going to hit a lot of models with that base on a charge. So if you can position that thing just right, to kind of do one of those, Tokyo drifts into the enemy's army, you might be able to be doing a lot of damage. Now, it does curve, so you have to be within 1 inch, but you can get quite a bit of models within range of that to do the mortals. I think you're going to do quite a bit of damage that way, and so think about those charges. You want to try to get the charges off if you can. Death Throes. If this model is slain, before moving from the battlefield, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches that's not a monster. On a 4-up, they suffer d3 mortals. It's kind of like the old the Gargants. If they fall over after they're killed, they do some mortals. I'm not going to count on that for anything. Hopefully, I don't get this thing killed. If it does, things aren't going well. Or maybe they're going well because I've got them distracted by this giant dinosaur and they've spent all their resources on that. Terror. This is our standard subtract 1 for the bravery characteristics of enemy units when they're within 3. It's the same thing we have on a lot of the other Carnosaur and stuff, and the banners. So you unfortunately can't stack it, but it is nice to give that subtract 1, especially in combination with Roar of Ruin. Once per battle at the start of the battle shock phase, you can say this model will use its Roar of Ruin. If you do so, have the bravery characteristics of the enemy models rounding up that are within 12 inches of this model until the end of that phase. And this does stack with the other thing, but you half it first, and then you subtract 1, as the designer's note says. So this can be pretty good if you can get some damage off, start that bravery test, and then half their bravery, and then subtract 1. So you can make some good stuff run, especially if it's elite, and you really want them to run fast that way. You'll probably get some models to run that way. So let's look at what the damage table shows on this Carnosaur. So if we add up all of its attacks, here is this enormous dinosaur's damage. It's not that good. Against a 4-up save, it's going to average 10 damage. For 510 points, I would expect more. I would hope for more. It's not really... I don't think it's designed to be a damage-dealing model. I don't think that's what its purpose is. So what units can buff the Dread Saurian? Well, unfortunately, not a lot. There's really nothing that can buff its damage output because I don't have the keywords here. It's not keyworded Skink. It's not keyworded Saurus. So the only keyword is Seraphon that you can add buffs to, and there's not a whole lot for that. There's a couple spells here and there that you can add to them to make them fly. From the Slann stuff, you can heal them, so that's always nice. And you can reroll hit rolls of 1 with a Skink spell. We could also do that with a command point. The one buff that I can find in our book is in Coalesced. He'll get the +1 to his Jaws attacks. So if I add that, Coalesce +1 to jaw attacks, and I'm going to spend a command point or the Skink spell to reroll 1s to hits. All we're really doing is adding 3 damage on average. So it's because that jaw attack is so bad, it hits on the 4s that we're really just not going to do a whole lot of damage from this guy. But I don't think that's what he's designed for. I don't think he's not that corn dragon that kind of shares the same base. Has something like, it can have a max of like 40 attacks put through it for crazy damage. But of course, it's 1,200 points. It's over twice the cost of this thing. So maybe that's not his point. Let's look at what buffs we can add to it. And I think the best ones I found were the Skink Starseer. So of course you can get a long charge off of him if he's wholly within 12. But I really like the spell from the Skink Starseer. That +1 to save, or -1 to save for the enemy. But I'm going to be putting that +1 to save on this Dread Saurian. So all of a sudden he's going to go to a 3-up save with 35 wounds. Okay, I like that better. In Coalesced, he's -1 from the damage that you're putting onto him. So right off the bat, all of a sudden he's going to take a lot to take down. 35 wounds, half in your damage if you're doing multi-damage, and well, taking 1 off of it. And then a 3-up save. Not bad. The Slann's ability will let him fly, and another +1 to save, but only versus shooting. So I think I like both of those, that spell and that command ability, if I can put him onto that Dread Saurian, because now he's going to be at a 2-up save versus shooting, a 3-up save versus melee, and if the Slann's close to him, which he'll be for that command point, he'll have a 4-up save against spells. So you've kind of got a save avenue versus just about everything. Nobody's going to want to shoot it because he's going to be at a 2-up save. Nobody's really going to want to get in melee with him because he's going to be on a 3-up save. And you can't spell him to death because he's gonna ignore half of them. So they're going to have to dedicate something else to it. So I kind of like both of those buffs, the Skink Starseer and the Slann or Kroak command ability, onto the Dread Saurian. I think we're going to have to lean into that tanky option of this Dread Saurian. He's not putting out a ton of damage, and so I think I want him to just survive as long as possible. So getting him down to a 2-up save, maybe spend another command point to reroll ones, and I think you can keep him around for a little bit. So I think that's his role, is being a tank for the army, not necessarily a damage dealer, because he's not going to be putting out a ton of damage here, only averaging 10, but he's going to be a tank. So let's see, what does a totally serious Dread Saurian list look like? This is not a totally serious list. So if I said I want to get 2 Dread Saurians, because I mean, of course you want 2 Dread Saurians, right? I'm going to take a Slann, Lord Kroak, and a Skink Starseer. Those are my 3 buffing heroes that I'm going to add to that. We're going to take some command tricks and artifacts just to help out our Slann to make him a little bit better caster. And Lord Kroak, we're taking the healing spell just so that we can make him both fly and heal if we need to on either one of the Dread Saurians. And the Skink Starseer, of course, for that spell that he has that gives him a +1 to save. And I put Hand of Glory on him in case you really need to do some damage. You can let him reroll ones, but honestly, we probably won't be using that very often. Battlelines, a couple units of Skinks, and some Saurus Guard to help protect our Kroak, keep him alive. And that fills out our Battleline. And then, of course, our 2 Dread Saurians. And Balewind Vortex to put Kroak onto. So maybe this would be a list. Let's see what this looks like on the table. Okay, let's see what Dread Saurian looks like on the table. All right, we got our battle plan, or not our battle plan, our map laid out. You can kind of see our deployment zones here, and I laid it out for Border Wars. So we've got our 4 objectives here. No terrain because I didn't put it on here. But look at the size of this base. So if you've got a 12-inch deployment zone, this base is 11 inches long. So you're going to have half an inch between the front deployment and the back deployment of a Dread Saurian. Look at that footprint. It's pretty amazing. One thing that you're going to have to really worry about if you are running a Dread Saurian and you want to keep these buffs together, a lot of like the Skink Starseers, his has a wholly within 12 inch, so you've got to be base to base with this guy because it's an 11-inch base from front to back. So you've got to make sure you're right there hugging that Dread Saurian to give him the buffs that you need. The The Slann's one's a little bit further, but honestly, you're not going to be able to be too far away from him because it's so big. A lot of these buffs are wholly within. You're going to have to keep him in. But if I were playing something like this, I'm hoping I get first turn. If I'm playing Starborn, I'm teleporting this bad guy right onto the base, onto the objective, to where you can't get within 6 inches of that thing. You know, I'm running these guys up to protect, you know, a screen here, but I'm getting that Dread Saurian on top of that base to where nobody else can get to it. And then you're just going to try to survive as long as possible holding that base, or holding that objective. The other one, you might hold back for a counter punch, wait till later in the game to send it over. If you can hold this one and capture this one at one point during the game, that's the plan for Border Wars. You win the game. But these guys are huge. You have got to keep in mind your deployment. If there's lots of buildings, lots of terrain, you have to get these guys to fly. Because if there are buildings or anything in the way, they don't have enough movement. They only move 10. And so if they've got to climb up and down stuff, you're not going to get there. So make sure you have avenues to let them fly. You can do that with the Kroaks or Slann's command ability, or with the Slann spell lore. There's a spell lore in there that lets them fly. So these guys are pretty awesome looking. I wish I had one. I don't think I'm going to drop $240 on it and then have a 280 millimeter base. It's pretty huge. Another option, if you just want something about the same costs, about as tanky, but can do way more damage, just get Gotrek. But we don't want Gotrek. I mean, let's be honest. I love playing Gotrek. I play him a lot. But we want a giant dinosaur, right? This thing is awesome. So let me know if you've got a Dread Saurian in your army. How do you play him? You playing him as a tank? Are you trying to get damage out of him? Is that average 10 damage? Is that about right? It seems so low. But that's according to the stats hammer. I think I would be playing him as a pure tanking option. 35 wounds, 2 up save, 3 up in combat, 4 up versus spells, and then I'm going to heal him in my hero phase. All right, let me know. Anybody who's running Dread Saurians these days? Y'all have a good one.